long story short, I'm your host, Anne Marie, and I've got a special guest today, Annita McDonald, who actually was one of my mentors, somebody who I was able to partner with and is just a fabulous person. So I'm really excited to have you here, Annita. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to my audience.
I'm so excited to be here and thank you for reaching out.
Absolutely. The thing that I really wanted to get from you, you've had an awesome career in the tech space, and the point of interest for me is your decision to get into the chief of staff role, and then I want to explore what your next step was because you just continue to grow your career. So why don't you share with us, why did you become a chief of staff?
Yeah. Um, it's interesting how our journeys go. So the time that I became a chief of staff, I was actually going for a different role. And I didn't get that role, and I was very disappointed. And I remember getting coaching from, I had an interim manager at that time. And he said, Anita, you're really a strong leader. You have a handle on the business. You understand transformation with customers, all of these great things. What you need to get a little bit better at is operations. And I had just come from a different organization. I've been with Microsoft now 10 years. This was earlier in my tenure in Microsoft.
Mhm.
And so I was, I had a mentor who we just spoke about, Kelly Rogan, who I was working with. And she knew I was going for these different roles, and I was not exactly, thrilled about like not getting that role. And then her chief of staff was moving on. And I literally get a tap on my shoulder at one of our events and one of our services events. And he said, I think I got the next gig for you. And I said, and what might that be? And he said, well, chief of staff for Kelly Rogan, and who was in the domains at the time. And I said, yes. Like it was so, because I wasn't a deliberate thing for me
Right.
to go after. But what clicked in my mind at those two times is Kelly was a leader I wanted to work for. And so if you're interested in a chief of staff role, I would suggest that philosophically you should be aligned with your leader. And that's
Mhm.
an absolute must because you're carrying out their desires and
Right.
you're also growing with them along the way. So I knew that philosophically I was aligned to her. The other
Mhm.
thing I would say is that that conversation was gnawing in my brain. I was like, well, no better way to master it than to become a chief of staff because operationally you have to be excellent at a chief of staff role. So, and it was one of the best roles that I had, the most growth roles that I had.
Right.
Um, when I went into it, I didn't like, I find that we have like three types of chief of staffs. Like I want to be a chief of staff and then excel in the chief of staff line. I have I see chief of staffs go from chief of staff to different business roles to chief of staff back and forth. And
Right.
then I had thought I'd be that chief of staff that would go and learn and then see what other roles was out there. Because that chief of staff gives you visibility that no other role has, right? So I was always knowing that like probably my next role would be something that wasn't chief of staff. And I was just eyes and ears open, like what would that be?
Right.
And SLG, state and local GM role came up, and I had a lot of history in state and local, and I thought, well, this is perfect. Let me go for this, and there it was. So it's been a great career path since.
That's awesome. I think so. Listening to you, the few things that I was able to pull from that, which I thought was super interesting, is one, the alignment that you had with your potential new leader when you're talking about Kelly, because I think there is a level of proximity that you have with your leader where you've got to be just so in sync. And if you don't have that, you could do the job, but you're so much more effective if you've got that really strong relationship and connection. And so when you were presented with this opportunity, it was an easy yes for you
Yeah.
because you knew her style, you knew what you wanted to do, and you were able to move into that. And then the other thing that I got from you is the opportunity for growth for you to do something even bigger. Because I actually had somebody who mentioned on one of my previous calls, they said, if you want to have the hands on version of an executive MBA, go be a chief of staff. And I think
For
that's what
sure.
you described,
Yeah.
right?
for
You
sure.
see everything, you've got that visibility, you've got those connections, you're in the trenches, you're understanding things at a very strategic level. And then there's this operational side that you've got to really get to know well, to just be this well-rounded individual. And so I like that because like the possibilities are endless. And now here you are again, taking your career to another leap where you're a general manager, taking all of that experience that you gained as a chief of staff and applying it in your current role so you can continue to grow and do these great and amazing things.
For sure. It definitely is. It sets you up when you think of leaders in Microsoft, especially, or in large, complex organizations, they have to be really well-rounded in their capabilities. You have to be able to effectively lead, to lead through challenges and change, as well as operationally have your, arms around the business and, motivate and get a team as hundreds or thousands beneath you
Right.
marching in the same direction. And like there is no better role that helps you see that than the chief of staff role, for sure.
Wow. When you moved into the chief of staff role, was it always your plan to just to continue to grow? Because you talked about different paths. And I do know folks who've been chief of staff for years, and that's just their bread and butter. They love doing it. So for you, as you were doing your development, was there something in the back of your mind that says, I want to get this experience because I know what I want to do next? I want to continue to grow my career in a more senior fashion.
Yeah, I definitely had that. I want to grow my career in a senior fashion and saw the chief of staff role as that expansive role that would allow me to do that. I do think that I do every now and then check and say, would I want to be chief of staff? Like, so, I never say never,
Right.
never say never. And think about, like, I'm a fan of kind of thinking about your next step and like kind of doing maybe two different paths. And, maybe one day I would do that again, but yeah, I definitely thought it was a growth path
Nice.
to higher roles. So,
Awesome.
and I also interviewed, and that would be something I would recommend. Like I did, many people come to me to interview. Okay, I'm thinking about a chief of staff role. What
Right.
is involved? Should I do it? This is my career path, that kind of thing. And I had done that prior to taking the role. Like, my current boss was the chief of staff at one point in time. I saw her career path, and like several others that I just went and said, okay, so let me think about this. If I wanted to go this direction, is chief of
Yeah.
staff a good path there?
Gotcha. Gotcha. So
Mhm.
always think in advance. I Before I close, the thing that I wanted to ask you is because I've got folks who watch and they're aspiring chief of staffs. What kind of advice would you give them as they're considering this role?
Mm, I think be honest with yourself.
Okay.
I think be very honest with yourself in the sense of what you're good at, what you're not good at.
Mm,
Because when you go into the chief of staff role, it's likely going to be the most demanding role you ever had. And so, you know, it's if you're honest with yourself and say, okay, my time management is something I have to work on, then make sure that you know that there's a deliberate effort on your time management. Or, you know, I like strategic, but I'm not comfortable in like creating PowerPoints. Guess what? You're going to have to create a ton of PowerPoints that are strategic, right? So go get, be honest with yourself about how ready you are for this role so that you're setting yourself up for success. First of all, go after it if you want to do it for sure.
yeah.
But be honest so that you can be successful when you step in the role.
Awesome. Awesome. Anita, I am delighted that you spent some time with me and my listeners today talking about the chief of staff role and your growth and how you just continue to up level yourself in all these amazing ways. Everybody, I enjoyed this. I know you enjoyed this. I know you're going to walk away with at least one or two things that you can do as you're considering this role. This is Anne Marie, the long story short. I appreciate your time and I'll see you with my next guest. Thank you again, Anita.
Thank you so much.